this is going to be a fun conversation tonight. Our guest, Bill Priemer, is the CEO of Hyland Software. Bill joined Hyland in 1997 as Vice President of Marketing and worked his way through the ranks, ultimately becoming CEO in 2013. Prior to joining Hyland, Bill held executive sales and marketing roles at FedEx and AST, a personal computer manufacturer. And for those who don't know, Hyland provides technical infrastructure for organizations to transform siloed data points into actionable content. So that's pretty impressive. Yes. Bill was born and raised in Northeast Ohio and studied at Boston College and Northwestern. Although he's lived and traveled around the world, he is happy and proud to call the Cleveland area home. He is a contributor and leader in Northeast Ohio's innovative sector and serves on many boards. So thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks for having me, Camille. Hey guys, thanks for coming up.
So to get started, my first question here, Hyland is not new to this. Hyland is true to this. Hyland has been around for 30 years and going strong. So can you tell me about how Hyland got its start and when did you feel it really took off?
Yeah, well, 30 years now, so right, this is like ancient history. But Packy Hyland Jr., he was in Wisconsin working for a small bank, he was like their IT guy. It was a one-branch bank in rural Wisconsin, and they were evaluating a solution for back then. I mean, it's a very paper-based world, right? I mean, Hyland, we built our business on converting organizations off of paper to a digital world. And this bank would send out paper copies of their statements to their customers, to their clients, and keep a paper copy for themselves. And that's what they would reference, paper statements. So they were looking at a very first solution in 1991 to digitize those statements that were generated by their banking software. And Packy was their IT guy, and he was involved in the evaluation and said, this company's going to charge us $20,000 for the solution. I think I could write one for you for 10. And these guys were like, fine, go ahead, do it. That's great. So he did. Somehow it worked. He didn't have a computer science background or engineering, but he studied BASIC, DOS-based program. As he was doing that, right, he saw the other kinds of paper that existed in a bank. Checks and signature cards, from those that remember that, because you'd countersign a check and they'd pull out a signature card from a drawer and see if that signature matched the check. Loan documentation. Banks were rife with paper. And he said, wow, this bank and all banks need an integrated multi-form factor document management solution. Now that he couldn't even dream of building, but he found Miguel Zubizarreta, who became our longtime chief technology officer, and they built it. At the time, using new technology, Windows, that was brand new operating system, a relational database that was brand new. So they were able to do some things that the competitive set wasn't doing. And we were successful at, we had a disruptive solution that we were selling to small banks across the country. Got some sales reps that were representing other products that said, well, you guys have a better product, we'd like to work for you. And then we caught the attention of one of the largest makers of core banking software in the country that were selling a competitive product to ours as part of their suite. And they said, your product is much better than ours. We'd like to private label it and market it along with our suite of banking software. And that was a big deal for us. And that happened about 5 years into our existence. We were a bootstrap company, had some family and friend funding, but it was very lean times prior to that relationship that established a sales pipeline for us, actually loaned us some money, and then we were kind of off to the races. So that was a big deal. And over the course of 30 years, I mean, we had a lot of, there were other milestones, and maybe we can get into them. We established a partner network, moved into other industries. When we first decided to move into healthcare, that was a real big deal for us, and augmenting what is today's electronic medical record with documented information. So when you go to your, here with our area hospitals, they use Epic as their main electronic medical record system, and when you go and pull up my chart, sometimes you'll see PDFs, you'll see content that's attached to your record. That's coming from our system, and these are notes from a referring physician or your lab test results or insurance information. So making the move into healthcare, sort of further diversifying from financial services, that was a big deal too. So yeah, that's a little bit of the founding story and the early days.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I feel like, one of the key factors of success for any company is really being able to identify trends before they trend and be able to, leverage and mobilize and act on it. So that said, we know that Hyland has survived during, crazy times in the tech industry, and would love to hear more about, what you view as some of your key drivers of success in a very fluctuating market.
We stayed very close to our customers, and all you guys, know this, entrepreneurs or established businesses, and you listen to them, and you listen to what they'll tell you very specific things that they need that will make their experience with your product better. You hear enough of that and you go, okay, well, that's a good thing to add into our software. That's more incremental. But then you talk to them about, okay, but take a step back from sort of the immediate use of our software. What sort of challenges, what are the primary challenges that your organization is facing? What are the primary opportunities that you guys are trying to capitalize on? And that's where some more longer term and some more disruptive innovation can come from, because if you can help them pursue those goals through your products and solutions, then you'll really have something. Not only have something, but you'll have something that they'll want to buy because they just told you these were their most important challenges and opportunities, and those are the things that tend to get funded. So we've had a pretty good history of doing that. I would say, just some other things over the course of our time. We decided we wanted to be profitable as soon as we could. We kind of had to be, because we didn't go through Series A and B, and we didn't have debt. We had to have retained earnings, so that allowed us to withstand sort of ups and downs of the economy. Our growth was always pretty moderate, pretty steady and moderate. We grew about 15% per year. We were happy with that. We didn't think in our solution segment there was like this really strong first mover advantage where we had to get really big before anybody else entered the market. And so what that meant was, if you're only planning on growing 15%, per year, you're only investing so much. So if you hit a brick wall, if you make a mistake, if you have to pivot, you haven't invested so much that you can't recover from it. So I think those are some of the things that have kind of contributed to the longevity.
For sure. And just a follow-up question here, what are some of those early pivots that you all had to make, and how did you come to terms with making those?
Yeah, that's really good. I think when we first established like our partner network, so when we had a defined target market, it was a direct sales model. That's how we thought we were going to reach. And you guys, know about like pivoting your go-to-market strategies. We thought that was going to be the way to sort of reach our target market. Well, then, actually, we encountered this core banking maker who said, I want a private label. We said, well, gee, we haven't really thought of that before. That opened up, a whole another kind of go-to-market channel for us. And when that was working, we said, well, gee, maybe there's other kinds of organizations that are selling to non-banks, that are selling to manufacturers and insurance companies and hospitals and colleges and universities. If we could find them, and they could use their sort of domain expertise to bring us to market. So we built our channels, and that was something that we hadn't planned on doing. Workflow, we're as much of a, we're kind of known for content management, but we're as much of a process management company today in reality as a content management. And one of the things we realized was, and this was a big pivot for us, when our customers and their users were accessing documents, they weren't doing so randomly. They were doing so because they had a role in part of like an operational process. And we said, okay, well, instead of then you having to look for these same documents at this point in the process, why don't we route them to you at the right time? And of course, that's what workflow, or BPM, business process management, has invested a lot in that. And that's a big chunk of our value comes from the process management components as opposed to just the digital content aspect.
Gotcha. Thank you. Switching gears just a little bit. So being a CEO has its challenges. You know, there's great things about it, and there's some challenges about that too. And one thing that, I want to ask is, what has been one of the greatest challenges being a CEO? And, how do you navigate some of those decisions and things that you have to make?
There's no challenges, Camille. I don't understand.
Hey,
I don't understand. When I took this, so I'm in my 26th year with the company, held a bunch of leadership roles, was kind of part of our core senior leadership group, and I'm in my 11th role as CEO. And a few months into the CEO role, I go to the dentist, and I'm like, my jaw just hurts. It just aches. And he's like looking at it, and he's like, I think you're grinding your teeth at night. And he says, do you have any like new stress in your life? And I'm like, do I? And that difference, right? I was the chief operating officer of our company for 8 years, and there was a real difference from being one of the people responsible and accountable to like being the person ultimately, right? And I didn't expect I would feel it, I think, as much as I did. But all kinds of challenges ultimately, like the big decisions you make, and these are the things, right? For you guys, I know a number of owner operator and CEOs. The easy decisions, those are made by other people. I mean, they don't have to come to you. I mean, we know how to delegate and have people responsible for different aspects, right? And so the straightforward things that have a clear-cut answer, those are already decided. Mm-hmm. The harder, and in our organization, things have to go through like 7 layers of really competent leaders before it gets to me. So by the time it gets to me, it's like, we have no idea. Like what we've got 3 bad choices here, and you've got to make one of them. So that's the nature of the job. But the toughest decisions involve people, and I think any leader would say this. And even more pointedly, if you have to ask someone to leave your company, and I've had to do this a lot over the course of 30 years, who actually was a really good contributor and a valuable employee for a time, and then for whatever reason, it could be, it could be their own skill set, it could be we changed organization, could be we pivoted, could be financial reason. And then for the good of the organization, you make the determination and you ask them to leave. That's tough. And I've had to do that a lot on an individual basis. I've had to do it on a few occasions with sort of collections of people. And I had to do it on a mass level 4 months ago. And so those are the toughest decisions you'll have to make sort of, emotionally, because you're affecting people's lives and maybe even the course of their lives, not to be too dramatic. So those decisions are going to be the most sort of careful and going to weigh heaviest on you of all the things I think you do as an organizational leader.
For sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. To turn a little bit, so we're all in Northeast Ohio, and we love Northeast Ohio, but would love your insight on, why do you feel that Northeast Ohio is a good space for innovation?
Being based here had a lot to do with our success, and I think we would have and succeeded somewhat not being based here. But when I think about any organization, it's people, and this is where the preponderance of our people, especially in those early days, came from. We wouldn't have the same complexion of the company. I don't think we'd have succeeded to the degree that we have. I think some of the advantages of this region are a little different going forward than they were for us. Being one of the fewer tech companies at the time, we really had sort of our choice of all the talent that was coming out of these great computer science and engineering programs for these great universities that we have. And that was great. And then, we built a culture and career paths and everything else so that people would want to stay with us. But the fact was, if you wanted to work for a tech company in Northeast Ohio, there still weren't, that many options. So from a talent attraction, a talent retention standpoint, this certainly helped. And then, the wage scale was just different than what, they were paying on the coasts or in a place like Austin, Texas, or, Boston or something like that. A lot of that has changed, right? Because now it's, everybody can work for anyone from anywhere. The wage scale has changed dramatically, and I'm thrilled. I mean, I'm thrilled for all of our, technologists, and that's great. I mean, the more options for people to sort of, leverage the most out of sort of their experience and knowledge to find the best career and job possible, I'm like all for that. But, some of those advantages that we had sort of regionally have kind of gone away. But some of them haven't. And one of the things that I love about having a business here is that because we're not surrounded by tech companies, it's not like every conversation I have where it's just about, I don't know, it's about, now it would be about AI, and last year it would have been about, some kind of blockchain,
NFT.
Crypto, NFT, right, yeah. And that's all anybody talks about, and it's like they're talking about the technology, and then they're looking for a problem to solve. But here, like all our friends and neighbors and most of the professional network are like, they work in healthcare, they work in government, they work in insurance, they work in banking, they work in manufacturing, and that's what we talk, when you talk about business, that's what we talk about here. So for a company like ours, then what you talk about is kind of back what I said. You talk about the challenges and the opportunities that are facing our hospitals or our manufacturers, and then, it's sort of, and then what you do as a technologist is go, well, how could some of these emerging, technology capabilities or some of these things we work map to that need. And I think that's whether it's a business-oriented, software technology company like mine or even a consumer one. I think it's one of the really cool aspects of a place like this that's not just all about the tech.
For sure. And just going a little bit deeper into Hyland's impact on our region and just overall mission, we know that Hyland is really built to inspire careers in tech. And can you talk a little bit about what is Hyland doing to advance that mission?
Yeah, thank you for that. It really is like the thrust of our community in engagement here in Cleveland, but also in other places where we've got, populations of people, Kansas City and Tampa, Lincoln, Nebraska, is try to encourage young people, not just young people, but a lot is oriented that way to pursue careers in technology. And we did that, we started years ago, originally as a workforce development strategy. Because we weren't a tech hub, our university partners that we were getting interns and then employees from were saying, we don't have enough kids enrolling in these programs in the first place. So we said, okay, well, we got to hit these kids in high school, and we even worked back from there, middle school, to try to expose kids to the fun and the potential of careers in technology. And so we would do all kinds of things, still do, hackathons and tech camps, and we don't do them by ourselves. We've got a lot of community partners, and some are represented here that have sort of a similar mission in mind. But it was a little selfish when we started because we were trying to grow our workforce. We were based here. The preponderance of our workforce was coming from here. But it really worked. Well, these days we've got employees all over the world. So it's not as much about that, but we still feel like we can have a role to play at being one of the more visible technology companies here at doing that. And there's a number of fields in which people can pursue really fulfilling and rewarding careers, but we know tech is still one of them. We were talking earlier, it's not just a technology companies. It's like every company has become a tech company and is so technology dependent and technology enabled, right? So it's a fantastic career. And so we've kind of pivoted a little bit from, we did a really nice job at sort of getting field trips and enroll participants in our hackathons from like the west side suburbs. And we kind of said, those kids are going to be fine anyway. Like even if they don't pursue a career in technology, maybe they're coming from anyway. And we said we'd like to get to more of the kids in our urban core, but it was harder. Transportation is hard, even though it's like just 12 or 13 miles away, trying to get the kids out there. Then we would sort of go into the schools, but that's a different thing, because now you're just another teacher in their classroom. So it didn't have like the effect of getting them in the cool space, working with our people that was like sort of lit up their imagination. So we are really psyched that we're going to be, part of that Midtown, what do we call it, collaboration center? Do I have that right? It's going to be, that's what we're calling it, right? Right? And that's where JumpStart's,
yes,
right? Headquarters is going to move to, and so we'll be there as well with a tech outreach center. And so we'll have that ability to do all of these programs that we do with our partners, bring kids into super cool space, but it's a walk or a bike ride or a short car ride where we can, pick them up or whatever. And we can do all the things that we do, camps and hackathons and build apps and build websites. And, no longer are we trying to evangelize Hyland and say, wouldn't you like to work for Hyland someday? It's, wouldn't you like to be in tech, and you can deploy that in any manner of industry or organization. So we're I think January 25 is when at least our portion of that building kind of opens up, and we'll be able to move in there and start our work.
I know that there's other founders in the room that are really building some amazing things. So do you have any advice for founders that are in the audience that are pursuing something disruptive?
You and I were talking about it before. The more disruptive you are, I think the more prepared you have to be to pivot, right? If you're going to enter a market and you're going to do a slightly better version of something that's already out there, but there's a need, how it gets sold, what it addresses, what a price, right? There's a market for it. But if you're trying to be truly disruptive, you don't know, right? You think you've got a vision for it, but you don't know if you're hitting the right at the right time with the right offering. Other alternatives could emerge that you just don't know about. So you've got to be really willing to sort of change course. There's going to be something there. There's going to be some path to pursue, but it may not be, the one that you originally envisioned. So you got to be careful not to just have so much belief in this great idea that it may be able to materialize 3 years from now, or it might come to fruition. But I think that would be one. I would say also, just in terms of innovation, we do this at our company. You can start small. When we've got an idea, we need like a product manager and an architect to really prove out that concept. Work with the first customer, work with the first 2 customers to see if that idea has legs. And then as it's starting to resonate, then we can add more resources to it. But we're not big fans of saying, here's some great idea, let's put 20 people on it and see if it's going to come to fruition. I don't think there's any need to do that. And, with disruption comes a lot of failures, and you'll get demoralized at the amount of resource that's used on ideas that don't pan out if you invest too heavily too soon in something new.
Thank you for sharing that. So I had the opportunity to ask you some great questions, and we wanted to briefly open it up to the crowd if anyone has a question.
Hi, I'm Steve Bain with Mercy Health. I have a somewhat related question. You spoke earlier about culture, and I know that Hyland has somewhat of a legendary hiring process to feed into that culture. If you can comment on that, and just comment on how you maintain that culture in a distributed environment like that with a lot of the folks working from home.
Well, and a culture there's a lot of manifestations of culture, but it ends up being about sort of the kind of people you have at your place and how they interact with each other, right? Sort of your behavioral norms. That's like that's sort of the core of the culture. And so, when you're interviewing, you want to find people that are like that. And for us, there's got to be a degree of like passion and excitement about some things that maybe normal people wouldn't get excited about. I'm going to automate this like claims process. Not everybody's going to groove on that. But we've got a lot of people that do. In our organization, it's everything's team based. Everything's team based. So, I mean, even our developers that are right. Obviously, you're sitting there and writing a lot of code, but you work in teams. You work in sprints. That's a very collaborative process with the product manager, the product owner, the architect, and so you have to be somebody who's kind of comfortable, kind of working in that environment and not kind of working in isolation. Even if you're working from home, there's going to be a lot of interaction. We've got some teams that even while they're working from home, they've got the camera always on, and the team is like live, like in the Zoom, and there are 5 or 6 of them, and you can work, and then you pick your head up and like you chat, like as if you're like in desks that are next to each other. So we're going to need people like that too, and you try to get to, for our kind of organization. A lot of organizations would aspire for this. You want this mix of. You need some kind of. You certainly want ambitious people that want to accomplish something, because that's where you'll get some, some work ethic from and some drive. But you want that to be sort of in the workplace, kind of subservient to the team goals, and however you can get to that, and of course you have to make sure that if the team and the organization succeeds, then the individual succeeds. So you have to like tie the two, sort of compensation and kind of motivation mechanisms and things like that. But yeah, it's tougher. It's tougher to we have this mural in one of our buildings that was hashtag Hyland Life, right? So it was sort of a picture that kind of represented our culture, and that mural is all like physical things. It's like a bike, because we like bike around the campus. It's like a slide, because we've got slides in our offices. It's got an apple, because we've got Free Fruit Tuesdays or something like that. But it was all these physical things, which I guess makes sense. I mean, you're making a mural, you gotta paint something. But I was like, wow, like we don't have the ability now to have any of those like physical office things kind of represent or reinforce our culture. How do we do that? We just have to do that by interaction. That's all that we have. All that we have is interaction and communication. So it puts a premium on getting that right. Yeah. Sorry for the long answers. These are great questions, though.
She's really nervous. Bill, thanks for your time today. Kind of going to the customer side of things. You threw out a few cliches there, but as you look going forward in your product roadmap and how your customers are going to kind of look to you, to how you take them to where they need to go. And I realize AI is a cliche that we tend to roll our eyes at this point. That said, this year has been probably an acceleration of transformation that we've not seen often in technology. How do you see taking Hyland forward in terms of addressing the need, the demand that your customers are going to have for incorporating generative AI, large language models in their tech stack that you're a part of?
Yeah, that's a great.
And enabling them to, realize value from that. And is that internal? Is that acquisition? Combination?
Yeah, that's fantastic question. We've been paying attention to it for a while. Obviously, it's what everybody's talking about now. But if you look at, our sort of strategic drivers and strategic plan. You'll see machine learning and AI, 4 years ago in some of our thinking and work that we've been doing along those lines in R&D, since before that time. If you look at the first 30 years of our company, like I've described, we've digitized organizations and a lot of these operational processes, right? So the student admissions process, the claims process, all these processes that we're involved with, these content-centric processes, we've digitized them. So they're all digital now. All the information is digital. It gets routed digitally. But people are still very involved in those processes. So we present all the information to that claims administrator, but we still ask that person to look at all this information, and then you decide, are we going to approve, or are we going to deny? Do you need more information? Do you need to route it to that exception queue or that exception queue? Very people dependent. We're the backbone of the California social services, their whole framework. So if you apply for food stamps or child assistance or unemployment, whatever it is in the state of California, those are content-centric processes that get routed via our software to people, case managers, people that are determining eligibility. There's no reason, really, for people to be doing that. It's like, right? Yeah. So what information are you looking for? What are your parameters? We have the information, right? We can interrogate it. We can. All these AI engines have got their different APIs, and we can use the right ones for the right kinds of use cases. So we'll be in the process for the next 30 years. We'll be taking all of these processes that we've digitized, and we will be automating. We will be removing people from these processes in much the same way as you've seen people removed from a manufacturing line. And there's just tremendous efficiency, speed, consistency, objectivity in having. Yes, there's some pitfalls that we're going to have to watch for, right? If you take people out of that process, you have to have people overseeing that process. But I am so looking forward to, even as a consumer of the companies that I help automate, right? To help them with the speed and efficiency of this kind of automation. And you know what they can do? Yeah, it will. They can put more people on the phone, right? Because when the standard stuff is just processed, right, in an automated fashion, more accurately, more quickly, hopefully you can afford to, if you're my airline, my cable company, my insurer, you name it, to like when I call, because if I could just talk to somebody, I could resolve this thing in like a minute, right? Right. Provided the person that I talk to is empowered, to help me. And the company that gets that right, that can automate everything that can be automated, but then is going to say no. But then if you got to talk to a person, you can talk to a person. They're gonna kill it, and those will be the leaders in just about any industry that you can think of. So yeah, we're not going to have to invent, the algorithms themselves. There's so many of them already. There's new ones spinning up. There's going to be industry-specific and use case-specific ones that we'll just be able to interrogate as we need to. So it's going to be, a really exciting future. There's some other applications of AI in our product, but automation of these kind of operational processes is going to be the main one. Yeah, that was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So before we wrap it up, 5 quick questions for you, just so the crowd can get to know you a little bit better. So this is our rapid fire.
That's exactly what they want. Yeah.
And real quick questions. So what are you currently reading, or what's the latest book that you've read?
We're reading a book right now on Harry Truman. Talk about tough decisions that guy had to make. End of World War II and the Korean War. Not a terribly impressive guy.
Okay.
No, a very ordinary,
That's real.
Ordinary man from Missouri that was sort of thrust into the most important job in the world. But yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. Next one. What's your take on Twitter versus Meta's Threads?
Wow. I was on Twitter, was kind of, disenchanted with it. over the last couple of years, it's really LinkedIn. I think has become. You said Twitter versus Threads, but I think LinkedIn for sort of professional networking really has just kind of a golden opportunity. And of course, you can post and you can comment and you can do a lot of things on there that, as a professional, that's kind of what I got from Twitter. And Twitter was interesting for me for a time when I could sort of engineer to be fed from specific people and posters that I respected and was interested in. And now it's not as much that. So I'm not on Twitter, not on anymore, but not on
Threads.
Not
either.
on Threads. Either.
Okay, gotcha. We know to find you on LinkedIn. So, one technology tool or hack that has changed your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got to be like the directions, the GPS,
Oh, yeah.
the ways, right?
Can't live without that.
I live like 3 miles from here, and it's pretty much a straight road. I'm still gonna Waze it, because if I could like save like 15 seconds,
The traffic.
I'm gonna do it. Man, what else?
Speed traps too. They let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also
They know.
in my family, we travel a fair amount. I'm like the restaurant guy, the things to do guy, and so all the different apps that allow you to do that. I do like really quickly, and my kid, right? For those of us that have kids, they're like, "How did you get anywhere?" Like in the old days, like literally, how did you get anywhere?
I know.
Right? How did you,
A map.
Right? How did print? Well, print out the MapQuest. Well, before your time,
Oh, yeah.
we had the red map books.
No, I've seen those.
And,
Yes.
Yeah, and Automobile Association triptychs when you were. I mean, yeah, we're going back now. But
Ooh, yes.
or how did you find a place to eat? Or how did you? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's
We ate at home.
yeah, right.
Okay, 2 more. Your least favorite corporate buzzword.
I probably said one of them like 20 times here today. We could probably shout them out. Least favorite buzzword. Justin, you got a good one? Yeah. That's a good one.
Circle. Oh, that's a classic. Good one. And then last one. Favorite Cleveland restaurant.
You know what I've been doing lately? It's that I'm not going to answer it directly, but because I've been finding that, like, if you want to have an interesting food experience, you go to these like small, they're usually family run, like an ethnic restaurant. Because otherwise, you go to a place and you get like a good you get a good beer list actually, and then some sort of standard American food. So I went to so that's what we've been doing with friends. So we went to a Jamaican restaurant in Berea last week that was like fantastic. And when do you have Jamaican food? And the week before, we went to a Puerto Rican restaurant that was somewhere off of West 117th. If you go to a place called Dang Good Foods, because the owner chef, his last name is Dang, he's Singaporean. It's right across
I
from
love
the
that.
it's right across
Love
from
a
the
good pun.
Lakewood football stadium. You get this fantastic Singaporean food. They're usually like in a crappy shopping center next to like a crappy convenience store, but the food's awesome, and I recommend. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. We went to the Bailey's for prime rib. Yeah, in
Awesome.
Westlake.
Yes, thank you. And again, everyone give it up for Bill. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Thanks so much, Camille.
Of course, of course.
Thank you guys for your interest and for coming out and for having me. This was really nice.